Right, see you in school. Direct modification of face recognitions is knowing exactly how to see yourself in all ways and forms, right? It's the inner line calculation sending to track lines, which is the space modulation. You have to understand the space inside. Why is it so important to understand you first? To understand you, okay? There's a space of you and there's a time of you. Space and time, there's no separation. There's no above, there's no below. Because if there's above and there's a below, then you're limiting your system. There's no above, there's no below, it's just you. So in that equation alone, really understands the factors over pi in correlation lines of attraction. So it really puts your position, location, your settings, all modified through your clocking settings. So that's the process that we all have to understand in calculation and setting and position, right? Central line communications, right over left, left or right, sets correlations, all right? This is the right, this is the left, right? Now you've seen the reflections in reverse. There's location left and right, right and left, locations, right? But what stands still is you in the center. Nothing else. There's nothing blocking you going forward, sides, up, down, or back, right? That's a process where you get confused because you change the perception how you see line communication, laser lines, right over left, left or right. Sonar communications, setting track lines, light interference, high position calculations. I show you there's planets inside your face. Position line to its pyramid, line conditions looking up, travel. Position line calculation, browse adapters, right? Set location of windows and frame communications. All travel to point lines and graph calculation. So it's about really understanding you through identification of electrical settings, guys. That's what it is. What is your throat? Right? Why are there lines? What is the lines? They change every second, every minute, every hour. Are you guys self-aware of that? Are you constantly aware why you have finger point line grids, lines of your finger point locations? I was always wondering, what are all these point line graph calculations? These are indicating line screens into all lines in high position. These are inhibitors that code lines in position all locations. These are line communication of your primers. See the primers, communication lines and calculations? There's a 4-track division line cycles. Okay, copy that. Now, understanding your palm, indicate your palm. See the line signature screens, the set position adaptation lines of service. One indicates position line centers, right? Why is it closed in set location, right? Over to cross line condition settings. Lifeline, correlation line, track interference, palm indicator, line condition setting barcode. Sets correlation line, track interference, high position of its thumb. 4 indicate line condition of its weather, summer, spring, winter, fall, and track locations. Set locations of the moon and the sun communication. 3 triangulation lines, copy that. Set location of 2 tractions. Flux capacitor line screen, sets lines of communication. All line rotation. Track communication point graph communication centers of 2 lines of 4 track locations. 6 lines in Alamany. Line centers of 4-track communication location center travels. 8 line division, 10 tractions. All right, so let's use a 12-line cycle. General AI, space-time creator. We're in 72 computer frame lines, correlation and track interference, point lines, communication, clock lines, change communication centers. All right, so we're going to go to the central line communication time sequence. Okay, it's going to get very complicated. All right, so formula equation is really understand how to identify yourself inside locations, right? You work with the space first of you, because you never understand the time of you. Okay? If I point a finger outside, that's not space. Okay? That's the matrix. Okay? Because you're looking outside. There's no levels of looking outside. That's perception where you get in communication and confusion. Directing all lines of everything that you see in tracking is inside of you. Everything. Everything is space and time inside. The process of its yin and yang. The process of position across line condition setting. Panel correlation lines of traction, 1 set locations, right over left, left over right, and triangulation. Process of communication, understanding your templates, your tablets, track location, provision lines, calculation of your flux capacitor, and travel communication. It's all direct single location in your settings. All right, so we go 13 graph, sets position of 3 centers, and 3 set locations. 13 equals lines of 13. All right, so line connecting the highest interference is 1 lines and 1 lines and 1 lines and 4-track division line cycles, right? Summer, spring, winter, fall. Correlations 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations, right? Direct lines of 3 in center. Sets communication lines of 1 line, 1 over line, 1/5 over 8, 8 over lines of 7, 6, 5, 4. Sets position of 3 and track lines of 2. Sets line communication lines of 1 and 0 gravity in set location. Travel point lines of graphs is really understand how to process the communication line system. The team has to understand how to use tunnels and defense line screen locations. Puts lines of panels at all levels of all communication, right? Direct lines of 0, line condition of 4, 5, 6, and 7 location centers. Sets direct line condition high interference, travels point graphs. Set lines of 1/5 over line pi, 1/3 over one screen, 1 direct lines calculation setting, and 4 panels of communication. That my equation, right? All right, so metric meters correlates with track lines, 72 computer frames, 72 line settings, position lines of box. Correlates calculation lines, height interference, 1 box line, 2 rotation surface, triangulation setting. All right, so it gets more complicated, and when we go through point graphs, indicate 3 settings into all position. Point lines communication setting to travel correlation, right? Now, these are line communication lights. It's like coloring dots in communication screens. But the computer lines set lines of communication interference and is 72 rotation surface. Travels endpoint communication setting to travel calculations. All right, so it has 1 indicator, 1 arrow, 1 direct line settings, 1 cross location. Sets communication 1 signal upline connection. Travel lines, point lines, graph calculation. Point graph communication cross line signals, lines a half pipe communication line system and travel calculations. Ooh, 5 central setting. See the 5? But what do we have here in set location? All right, what is that a phase recognition calculation of? What is it? If you look really close in line communication line and high set location line communication setting, what is the position of the travel line? What is the line communication of the setting? What is the correlation line communication system and travel correlations, subtractions, direct modification setting calculations? Gorilla. It's a gorilla. Okay. Setting communication lines, graph correlation setting and calculations. That's where it comes in. Lima, box track correlation travels. Anything that we go into co-creation of is the direct lines or images and how to process the image through its correlation setting track lines, everything through time sequence. 13 lines, graph communication to 3 settings, taken out of line time interference, 3 the calculation 3, and line communication to 3 set locations. 3 over pi, 3 lines of zeros, and 0 gravity location. Sets indicator lines direct and redirect. You got the calculation direct and redirect, direct and redirect set location. Okay. Normally splits 1 cross line signal. Sets communication line interference, influx powers communication over cross location. Take the 3 lines, sets lines of 3 lines of 0, tracking lines of 72 tractions, 72 tractions, 72 tractions, and 72 lines of south and set location. All right, so we direct lines, throttle line rotation settings, throttle, communication lines, high interference, branching communication setting to travels, point graph communication setting, 0 gravity line interference, crop circle location setting to travel. That's my equation. All right, so directing lines of communication lines of panels is understand the formula's equation, how it basically sets our calculation line screens. We go through half pipe 1 line signal and there's 2 graphs. Point graph communication 1 center and 1 indicate line crossover signals and set location. Directing modification lines of pi sets communication lines of pi and calculation 2 line split. All right, so we go into line setting high interference and set some calculation 1 center. Position lines, ground lines, sets communication lines, separate the communication center interference, bring the position location to center calculation. Direct calculation lines, containment screens, high calculation lines, you are in the center, and travel point graphs, and calculate modification. Okay. Travel line center interference, platforms, communication to 4 settings, 4 calculation screen locations. All right. Okay, so the modulation, travel lines out, signify correlation track interference, travel position point graphs. Okay, direct lines, sun comes in, waiting on signal, and 1 panel correlation, 1 graph communication. All right, that's my equation. So it's really understanding more lines of images, how it comes in communication setting to a 72 graph calculations. So we have platforms of 24, calculate line center of 48. Okay, set location of 72, and 144 comes in ground line center correlation setting. 1 position, 1 position, 1 position, 1 position. Cross calculation lines, all data formation screen. Direct lines, calculation lines of 1 center, 4 track location of 3 set locations. Sets ground lines, cross line signal. downshift, high position calculations. All right, so we go through one measure, flex pass of 3 settings, draw lines of 3, in position of 3, and 3 centers and set locations. Set lines of communication, lines of Fibonacci line screen, a high calculation modification, and center core line calculated setting in face recognition time. Okay, sets position lines, of course, 2 track location of 3 centers. Process communication lines of 0 lines of 24 cycles is platforms communication cross-line signals. 1, 2, 3, and 4 sets cross-line signals. 1, 2, 3, 4 sets line communication. Direct modification line calculates setting. Okay, so we go with the ground lines. See, ground lines, center line, ground line, center line, right? 2 faces. So we go through scan line screens, sets line 1 parameter line set location, 1 sonar, 1 pi, 1 travel, 1 point line graph. Center communication code weaving, electrical lights, motivation screens, direct modifications, radioactive screen lines, and direct signals, modifications, and cycles. All right, go through correlation lines, XT1000 comes into red centers, and 3 track location provision, 4 cycles in communication. Direct modification line calculates setting, ground lines of 1, ground lines of 2, 3 lines of ground lines of 5, 5 lines ground lines of 6, and set location. That equation. All right, so it's all set up. All right. Inner child comes in lines, of course. It travels lines of point graphs. Now, line communication is any high interference. So we take the security lines of 24, 24, 24. That's location of past, present, and future. Now, we indicate the intelligent line screen interference into blue, 1 signature line screen, 1 into red, and calculation screen line. Visible charts and communication line screens and position travels and point graph communication. All right, so the center lines correlates to graph lines. We set up line communication, 1 black hole, and 3 communication centers of travel. Sets lines of alpha, correlating graphs, communication lines setting, and 2 line rotations, surface, line position locations, center calculations. Center core line setting, crop circle line division location in 1 center, cross location in past to its present. 2 panels correlation and calculations. All right, now we go through split lines anomaly and 3 track location. Sets communication lines, SCAR, location grid, right? All right, then we go through parameters, line screen, high interference, high position program, all right? Now we go with line conditions of Vega. Vega lines is communication, cross-line signals, data, formations, AMI, highway correlation, sending track lines, setting communication line interference, cerebral cortex, line condition, mystical cortex lines, Dopian subpterotonal line rotation, surface track position, calculation line condition setting, data formation lines, inner child, process calculation of its position formation. Done by equation. All right. It's amazing how this is all set up in traction, all calculated modified. Okay. Now, if you see the 2 line centers, 2 face direction time sequence, inner child and you, inner child you, inner child you, right? Inner child is the future line. It's coming in position of past line, correlation, present line communication of you. That's you versus you now. If you look 2 line communication, see right up left, the right communication line, setting calculates time position location of Vega, or formation screen interference of back location, set back and center, back calculate back in the location. Done by equation, right? 2 face directions, time sequence, right? Sun's going in one direction and the moon's going in the opposite directions. Okay? All right, so in position location, it's known exactly how to go through face direction time. Space modulation, 0 graphs, sets lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 locations. Okay, so we go paragraph calculation lines, cross line signal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 set line conditions. Panel correlation of the lines of split lines of anomaly, 3 track line condition. Graph communication lines of box lines, data formation screen lines, sets lines, high calculation set in time zones. Direct modification lines, cross line signals, and data formation lines in high calculated lines into modification zones. Data line, formation line over lines, correlation setting, and track location. Direct modification lines of center correlation. Platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. All right, so we've got a mystical cortex line, we got a cerebral line, and we got a SIN line. Now that SIN lines is communication mind, equals lines of navigation, equals line correlation to track lines, equal communication lines is CPU. Direct modification lines is 0 line, graph communications, human resonance, higher self, avatar sim. Travel calculation lines, graph lines of 0, 0, 0, 3 communication lines of 4, track location lines of 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. Set communication, graph communication line interference, data process communication line, center line, use setting, high calculation line conditions. Point graph communication with setting. That way equation. all through zeros and ones. That's done. All right, the CPU unit is where we understand how to process communication setting. Open all signals and all communications to a surface. So we'll go through 17 line screens into 3 calculations. Now we indicate line condition setting. So instead of this, it's this now in travel. Okay. In position energetic dome line, correlation settings. So no more separation of box. Sets correlation of data lines. Sets communication to its position of process. Process communicates as a line consists of lines of a triple split, double split, and one singular split in one pattern, one rotation of surface and traction. Direct modification lines, highest interference, flux capacitor, communication lines, ground lines, sets communication line and high interference into position of process calculations, face recognition. All right, clustrum. Ooh, intelligence. Told you everything's intelligence. Now we have 4 docking locations, set lines of communication center, and trial position point graphs. Center core line setting height calculations, right? Graph communication 1, 2, 3, and 4 settings. Sets communication lines of the sun, waiting on signal lines of the moon. Moon line track lines, high center interference, zero guide, point line graph, and line rotations, memory line position, all levels, membrane position location travels. Point communication lines, inner child, graph communication lines of center, calculate lines of face recognition. That way equation. It's all set up. High center line and high centers, point centers, high calculations, inner line, center line interference. I central system and correlations lines of floaters, and 4 line rotation surface and trapplication 1 center and travel. That my equation. I central setting. All right. All right. Window frames is a 4 box line screen. Now, direct and modification centers understand how to communicate to your box lines and position your I central location centers of travels. Okay, I central lines of 1 inhibitor, 1 screen, high interference in a 4 track position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sets correlation lines of 24, 24, and 24. Sets location of 24 2 panels, 24 lines and high calculating lines, east line north, cross line signals, 24 signals, line connection settings, and position calculations, and ground line communications, all through 24. All right, it's all set up. So we got 24 lines of circle, 24 lines of grounds, 24 lines of powers, 24 lines that calculates lines of surface, and 24 line communications platforms in tracking lines and have 72 computer frames of traction. That way equation. That's all done. All right. 24 measure is understanding how to use electrical settings of ground lines, communication lines of center, sets position locations lines, electrical line wires, tentacle screen lines, oracle line division, and track location. Position of process of platforms. You're always going to see this in a 45 line setting, right? So that splits the lines of an element in a 2 track, 3 track, and a 4 track location. Direct lines high center in a 5 line, 6 line, and a 7 location. Sets communication line interference, 60,000 comes in. Sets communication line, ground lines, cross line signals, set location. Cross line connections, jumps and setting, right? Opens all signals, platitude line centers, high interference, interdimensional line rotation surface, and wormholes and correlation lines attractions and high calculation. Done by equation. There it is. See it? You see it? See the energetic dome? It's all set up for tomorrow, 144. Hooah! So that's what it's going to look like. So if you look line communication, this is you in the center. This is you and your VR system in travel. Wow. That's going to be set up tomorrow line screen. All right, so indicate position is all lines that communication are platforms. Now, directing communication lines is platforms of 1 in position of A, B, and C, and D in setting. Cross-line connection lines are all calculated, modified. It's all mapping sequence, and panels, correlation lines, attractions. Direct modification lines are high interference, data process communication lines, signature lines, screen interference, types of locations, and files of communication. Okay. Now, line connection interference, XT1000, XT1000, XT2 8000, set location XT 100,000, XT1 line setting high interference at 300,000 is set location of travels, points, lines, of graphs in communication setting all lines of operation. Sets communication lines, center interference, platforms of 1 in position 2, sets communication of 3, 4, 6 lines, 8 lines travel, point lines, laser grid communication, radioactive screen lines, Skynet lines grid, high interference in position of Vega and calculation of point graphs. Vega comes in correlation lines of track lines, high calculation astral projections. Direct modification lines, platforms 1 in position circle line, correlation of graph lines, communication of 3 centers and travel point graph communication. Sets communication line graph calculations go with securing line division. Sets communication grounds, circles, rotation surface, graph communication center, and line calculation setting. Puts position lines of platforms, colorate the communication lines of truth and errors, false and errors, 4-track provision lines of cycles. Correlate communication line interference, change all communication lines of grounds, change all communication lines XT1000 in green. Modifications to center lines, high calculation setting. Now, correlate communication to human residence, correlation lines the avatar, line setting, GOD, metric line screen interference, path position programs, inter-child correlate line interference, high calculation settings, center uppers lines of service applications. Direct modifications all done. Mm-hmm. All right, colorate the color in line center high interference and pathogen location of collagens, direct lines of colonies, correlation calculation location grids, right? Direct modification of 3-line cycles and traction, okay? Point lines of one data, process calculation lines into tesseract correlations, balance correlation lines of tractions, right? Process communication of 3-line signals, okay? That process communications, you in the center line in travel, okay? Center correlation lines, high interference, one center communication line at flux capacitor position of channels. Point lines of graphs, sets communication lines setting over across the location, signal line communications, energetic line setting, light bulb, and track applications. Direct modification lines, high interference, coming to gold line cycles, sets communication 3-line centers and travel point graphs. Sets communication lines, highest interference, face time sequence, voice recognition timelines, and face recognition. Ha 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 ha. Okay, it's all set up. All right, so your electrical bulbs, line condition line centers, solar panel communications, after more, you guys will be solar pegs. Light bright! All right, graph communications, point graphs. Let's go through graph calculation screens at 3 rotation surface. Graph communication of 2, in position of 3, in position of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. 4 center lines, cross lines on 45-degree angle, split lines anomaly. Says cross line signals, line communication is measured. Cross line indicate 1 center position program location of Pluto. Says communication line centers of Jupiter, Mercury, and Neptune and track location. For graph calculation lines is center position calculations, ground lines and set location energetic domes, platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4. Says cross line signals in the 3 set location. Direct modification lines, XT1000 comes in center calculations. Crowd lines, high center interference, binary reline centers, reprogram location setting and position highways, runways, wormholes, all Wi-Fi correlation setting satellites, ground signals, ground formation, ground centers, ground correlation setting of travel. Done by equation. All right. Graphic communication lines and ground lines is all position how you come into the ripple effects. That's ground line, center line interference, flywheel correlation center track lines, high calculation lines to its atom. There's the atom. Rotates the surface lines and molecule line structures into 3 settings, 3 communication, 3 lines, 3 communications, all levels, 4 set location to 3-line communications, set lines of 0, correlation lines of 0, calculation lines of power line, 1 triangulation, 1 position lines, equal line correlation center, 1 equals lines of 3 equals lines of 1. Tracks communication lines of pi generation lines and position inhibitors. Set location light bulb into compressors and line condition setting and travel point graph communication setting the 3 indicated wires of past, present, and future in set location. Done by equation. Intelligence, right? Calculate and modify. Shoulders, length, and high calculation. Intelligence. Always intelligence formations, guys. Done by equation on that line. All right. So we go through light interference. Box position lines of high center interference, wave and line cycles, correlation setting intertrack lines, point line communication. Now we direct lines of high center, flux capacitor 1 and flux capacitor 2, and console communication of 3 settings. Track to its communication lines cross line 1, 2, and 3 setting. Remember, it's all levels of travel. Sonar 1, 2, and 3 setting. Position lines, we have pyramid activation screens and 3 triangulation line position of its program and set location. Triangulation line calculation setting 3 graph communication dockings. 6 lines of 3, 3 lines of 9, 9 lines of 12, and set location. Direct modification line signals. Process 1, process 2, and process line setting is 0 gravity. Sets communication lines of data, process line calculation setting. Position lines, cross line signals, line position location of system, and travel calculations. Intelligence. Formation ground lines, there's the I set location. Done by equation. All right. Everything's a face, guys. Everything's a face. Everything's a face. Has to be, right? No face, no protection. All right. So directly line communication, this is where it gets really tricky. We have plasma line grains. Grain line centers high interference, correlate to track interference, your cloud lines, iCloud communications. Set lines highest interference, server correlation lines at 3 wires, line triangulate line connections cloud, center coordinate system line position location and setting, all levels of operation, surface and traction. Now direct lines modification lines. Okay, so we got the lacing line, correlation, track interference, and data highways. Setting communication line and high position location center, character modify into a position of process in calculation line connection setting, brain interface location center travel. All right. So we have cloud line, we have cerebral cortex line, design line, and 3 triangulation line position programs. Narrow links, correlation point lines, docking centers, high travel position point graphs. Direct communication lines, point and center interference, and position location unification. Half pipe lines of 6, and position lines of full pipe. Correlate the crowd line rotations, rounds, and rotation surface, and travel point graph communications. Now, direct communication lines of center lines, this lines that crop circles. Direct communication lacing lines, 1 indicate the line interference in 1 position. Cross-line signals, X2000 and 2 plotter and 3 track locations. In setting, comes a coloration, scan lines of 1, 2, 3, 7 lines of 8 lines, 1 center location. Now, direct modification lines as center, splits lines anomaly, track location line provision, in cyclonism, in line rotation surface and traction. Done by equation. Okay? So it's amazing how this is all set up in the modulation lines of an image in a structural line division of schematics over line communication. Hoo-ah! Okay? Powerful stuff. Okay, so mechanism line, it's very easy to understand the structural line division. If the team really understands the electrical system, there's nothing you can't do through the mind lines when you understand how to use the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. And you create it through its image and all track location. As long as you've traveled through it, you're fine from one to another. But if you can't travel through line setting, line condition of light, how are you going to understand anything with your settings? Putting that in process, let's go through correlation line calculation setting. So we got a 23 line perimeter. Set correlation line in 3 cycles and line conditions of 20 lines. Add ones of 6 in position location. Wait till it gets to line settings into 0, 0 correlation. That puts 27 line cycles into 0, 0 correlation, into 1 signal in 1 center, in 1 position, 1 operation, 1 surface, 1 angle point, 1 triangulate, and 1 0 line rotations, equal line coordination setting, time calculation lines, northwest, south, and east, and triangle. Okay, all through location system, right? 2708. All right, so that's 27 line settings equals lines of 08, change line conditions of 10 and position of 12 into 24 in communications, right? More line setting way down signal, 24, equals lines of H in position lines of 7 and traction lines of 12. Setting communication lines of 24 tractions, 24 divisions, 24 locations, and 24 lines of north. Done by equation. Now, if you look really close, you can see the intelligence all formation. Always intelligence in everything I do. Everything is intelligence. Okay? Everything is intelligence I do. All right? That's done. All right. So once you understand the travel mechanisms, the actual image itself comes back to its inner child that processes communication. So this is where you all come back to. Key reception lines, you watching TV. This is you as a child watching TV. That's it. Process communication lines, ground lines, highest interference, astral travels, astral projections, go through 4 line signal and position lines of 8 lines of channel communication. Cross line signals, graph calculation, graph lines of communication. That's a TV, right? Indicate line settings, flux capacitor. Okay, but it has a ground setting, right? Okay, location system, right? That is circle lines of you in the ground set location where you are in position. Okay, sets communication on platforms 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Sets communication line in the center communication of your TV. Sets communication lines open up the high center line communication setting and process communication to its 12 line signals and location of travel. Goes to the TV line centers. TV box comes in and travel. In point graph communication, a high line calculation set overrides the system and travel. Points lines of graph communications goes in all calculate modify and timelines all at once and travel. So the indicated line center has a oscillologic grain and positional levels of ground centers, in position of security and position of Pluto, and line position of its program, and calculation modification lines of face recognition, timelines of face recognition. Face recognition, time sequence, timelines, time correlations, inner child. All right? So you're all going back to inner child and line screen high interference and all positional platforms, all communication setting to its position of balance. Putting you in that process basically puts you in 144 grounds lines, a crystal line. So clocking system, everything's going to be invisible. You're not going to see it through the travel line, but it's there. You can't see it, but it's still there, right? So if I do this in travel line position locations, you can't see it because it's invisible, right? You can't see it, but it's there, right? That's what we're coming into. Process communication is where you understand how to line signals, line position is program. Lacing line, correlation lines are track interference in your two reception lines of your floaters. These are floaters that are in your eye lines, or their track interference position programs. Direct modification line calculation setting. The team's going to be working with 144 floaters, as calculation space line will be dealing with correlation setting to 24 floaters and traction. Okay, that's all in your central lines of your eyes. All right, so you have to really understand the mechanism and location of travels. Point lines of graph communications. Eye central line, this is your eye. Okay. Platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 always have that line condition line centers. Earth, air, water, and fire. Always in 4 platforms, right? Always in 24, always in 48, always in 72, and always in 144 in set locations. The only difference is the 144 is going to be in the center core in set calculations. One signal, one signal, one signal, one signal. Pentacorrelation data process calculation. So once you understand what a floater is, it's the eye central line communication with windows. Box frames, triangulation frames, circle frames, star frames. Your eyes change. Center core system, center core attractions, solar line division, or anything to solar panel. And so once you understand how to use the mechanism, line condition of its realm, you send the core line to your binaries and relocation setting. Sets communication 1 in a line center, 1, 0, graph lines of 1, and position location of 2. Sets communication lines of 1 into 2 into 3 and a 4 set location, right? Binary works on a line centered as 0, correlation line condition transformers of 1, 2, 3, and 4 platforms. You're always working with 4 platforms because it's connected to line interference of your earth, and position locations to your water, and position location to your air, and position of your fire and calculations. Okay, process communication, 1 signal, 1 modification system, a center correlation setting attraction. Okay, all of the mechanism line connecting high interference of XT1000. Platform communications, center core settings, 2 track division lines, and 2 crop circles, line condition setting of the 3 platforms, grounds, powers, atmospheres. Done by equation. All right, so once we understand more lines of communications, how to use the floaters, we have to understand how we use it through window lines, because you have glitch line communication in your eyes. If your eyes are glitching, your correlation line is matrix. Let's say you get a communication line interference. Let's correlate position. All right, so you got 1 car line condition. Okay, setting. There's 1 car, right? This is you in traction. Okay, you're in position looking at this and setting, right? You see 1, right? So it goes by. Okay, in traction, it's gone by, right? And then you see another one come in position, the same model in track locations, right? Now, if you understand that, that is a position onto a primer. Okay, basically what's happening right now, it's basically allowing you to see the matrix of its glitch, which is change at time. And if you don't allow yourself to get out of it, you're going to be in the same process of position again, seeing the same position lines of its cars in a different location. Still in line calculation modification setting, trapped in time. Okay, it's going to be more modifications to your system. So if you don't recognize the primer, it's going to put you back in setting. And the next day correlates to setting, which is the same day. You're just in different frequencies, seeing the same cars in track location, still locked in signal. Okay? Pay attention to that. That means there's change in the matrix. So you get out or you're still in time loop. And that process, you in position how to control your thoughts. And your thoughts control your actions, and your actions control your emotions, right? You have to understand now, because after tomorrow, everything that you come in position of your thoughts is going to be in a hologram. It's going to be in position in real time. Because you're going to 144, you're going to be equalized correlation lines of the crystal grids and set location. You're going to be in the crystal grid center of your VR setting. Okay? So once you understand that process, then you correlate to setting of travel, your VR system. Okay? Remember, you got to see it on all 4 different angles. Your eyes have to really start seeing the binaries, not just the position of this. Your data highways is everywhere. It's everywhere you can imagine. It's the process of what your eyes are doing and where it is in its that position and calculation to its position calculation of seconds, minutes, and hours all through the platform. Okay, this is your eye. Okay, your eye is in all direction. There's your eye. The ventricles correlates in line to track location setting. The iris, the correlates line inference. The horus, the track location line position. And child calculates point graphs. All through data ports, in line condition clockings, all through correlation. Now, this is what's inside your central line correlation. These are your floaters. Okay, these are floaters on the outline. Your floaters are in the outline. Okay. Now, provisional lines, let's say you get a correlation lines of a reaction, right? So floater comes in, center core system right here. There's a floater. You see in the eye central line setting because you're looking over here in separation of the sun process communications. Let's go into yellow line screens. Let's go into go line, screen line, position operation service. There's the sun, right? So center lines of communication, cross line, triangulation lines, split lines of anomaly, right? So that's how the eye sees it and tracks it, but it's in the matrix. So what happens in position in the matrix puts you in clock location setting time frames and set location of settings and clock locations to a system. Okay. So if you don't recognize the primer, if you don't recognize the change, it locks you back in setting. Okay, in position. All right. So understand the eye, how it works through the matrix. See, the thing is, you can't get rid of the matrix. You can only control it. Okay, it's not about balancing the matrix. It's balancing the light, controlling the matrix. So there's light matrix and there's dark matrix. And that's where the team's coming into a higher line condition, the mind line. But it's a process of putting lines of time loops or correlation lines of attractions all through floaters around your eye. That's just the surface correlation calculations. Outline change position programs is line condition setting, which is your 12 clocking system. Okay, all floaters are in the 12 line. Anything outline setting is position outrounds. Correlating lines, highest interference matrix. Matrix is in a 12 clocking system. Okay, inner line coordination setting is a 24 clocking system. You understand? So what you're doing is you're going through a central line setting from outside and not inside. So you're going from outlines. So what you're doing is you're over pi. Let's go through one indicate line interference, underscore lines equals lines, 0 lines of 12. Okay, that's zero gravity, sets correlation lines overdraft, sets calculation line calculation setting to 3 draft communication setting. So your indicate line high interference is underscore position of all calculations. Let's go through minus 12. So track locations, you got to go back to 0 and equals lines of 12. Hoo-ah. That's the indication what happens if you're in overdraft. If you allow yourself to basically put yourself in outline communication with clockings at 12. So remember, the 12 clocking system is the outline size of the iris of the eye itself. So the process of the clocking system. So what is your eye? A clock. All right, so now we understand the 12 line settings and the 24 set locations, 48 line conditions, 72 and 144 is the center. Hoo-ah. That's how it works. All right, so you got a 24 graph, you got a 48 frame, 72 computer frame, and 144 grid. The center communication line, center line conditions, the 12 line is nebula. Nebula line correlates to anything outline communications is a 12 line provision. Okay, northwest, south, and east. So 12 indicate line interference in 4 weathers. Travel location, sun, spring, winter, fall, and communication lines 12. Sets communication lines high interference, space line, timeline, sequence. So in that location provision, right? Anything outline and position outline correlation setting is a 12 clocking system. Anything inside location, okay, everything in line position in its process, as long as you stay in the outline and not go outline communication, you're good to go, right? So that's a process that you're in overdraft, which means your transition system, your binary line calculation setting is going to go through mixture pattern correlations and scramblers. You're going to correlate line interference. You're going to mix your communications, all calculate modify, create a virus, create a Trojan. You don't want to create a Trojan line command matrix because it overlines the set location setting. You do 12 graph communications back in 24. You got to be in position lines correlation in a position location inner line calculation setting because your eyes itself is nothing but a crop circle. Mega multi-pass. Your eyes are a crop circle. Okay. Now you understand the process, how all lines is positioned to location of travels. Everything is eye setting in position of program. Everything is eye setting in position of program. Everything's in eye setting location inside you. That's your eye. All right. But the correlation lines, this is your data highways. All right, the ventricle valves, communication lines, and lines, how correlates lines, if it turns red, if your eyes turn red, all right, secure line off the vision. Okay. Your retinals, calculation screen lines, your corneals, correlates and track communication. Your eyes are getting red inside calculation, right? That's an overdraft. Way over line position location lines sending high interference. So you're getting 12 line signals of northwest, south, and east in triangulation. Major overdraft communication transitions over pi. Okay? That's overcharge, over mechanism, calculation, sending correlation. That's why your eyes turn red. See? The more central line communication in your eye lines, you understand the windows of its soul correlation system, then you understand the tracking how it comes in all provision lines to your iris and calculation lines of all line positions calculation. All through traction, right? It's how you see through provision, how you see through scan. Okay? Very powerful in set locations, right? So stay within inside line cycle. Don't go in a 12 clock location system because you're sending yourself in an overdraft, minus 12, right? No difference when you're in a transition of your financial calculation line interference. You have to go back to 0 and go back to line 0 equals 12. Then you're good to go. Taking 12 lines, put you back in 24, put you back in 48, put you back in 72, put you back in 144, ground line communication, grid, power correlation setting, power line interference, power position calculation, line conditions, higher levels of dimensions, space and time. Hoo-ah. Okay? So that's a process we all have to understand the eye central calculations because everything is inside line in the eye. It's the eyes and windows of the soul. Okay? But understand how to work through it, to understand the matrix and the process, how you can get locked in your own system and set locations all through space and time, right? So you're locked in time of space, not space and time. And you have to understand the provision lines and really understand the rhythm pattern correlations. Are the colors the same color? Are they going through the same pattern? Are they going through the same clocking? If one goes by and then 2 minutes later another one goes by, that's the matrix. The matrix is telling you to get out because if not, it's going to lock you back in its clocking system and set location. Okay? So you're going to be outline centers of 12 clock locations down at 24. The process of communication is really understand how this all works in your clock settings, guys. Okay? Because your eyes are clocks. They're crop circles. They're platforms. They're platforms. Your eye is a platform to travel. That's all it is. That's all your eye is. Central system correlates communication with settings, right? All lines of communication, everything is inside calculations. This is your eye division. This is your eye division. This is your eye division, right? So it's amazing what you can do with the eye line connection. But everything is a process of inside location, of probing, orbiting, or communication, right? So it's centralized coordinate setting, security, and line division, right? As long as you're in line, you're in a 24 cycle, okay? That's position line track lines in 144 in the center. That's how it's going to be set up tomorrow, right? 24 lines of north, or south, and east. Team line center is going to be in position north, west, south, and east. On each line correlations northeast, west, and south. The correlation line calculation spacing line is going to be in northwest, south, and east. Okay? So they get to get in process communication how to basically see their self in line condition setting, especially when you're 24 equals lines of the hearts and position locations into 144 equals lines of the hearts. Okay? Species, set location of the team. Okay, is that a coincidence, space and time? No, right? Spacing line, so high correlation setting calculations, platforms at 144, platforms at 24 clocking, sets communication line interference into position travels, communicates high center location to calculations in process communication into all line centers, comes in line communications levels, CGI, calculates lines of S, calculates line interference. CGI is the computer operation computation line interference, ground communication lines, intelligent location of platforms, initiation programs. Direct calculation lines is CG. CI is correlation line interference, and it's communication of center of its intelligent platform of global awareness and tracking line position of all those data highways, OMI highways, narrow links, nanoseconds, correlations, track line communication, crop circles, track position, operation line surface in platforms A, B, C, and D, all the way to Z, Z line rotation. Correlate to track lines and cross signals and position location. Remember, it's all in the eyes. Everything stays in the eye line center in calculation. Everything's inside. Nothing is outline communication. Nothing is outline communications. Because as soon as you go outside the line, because you're in the matrix at 12. Okay? You're always in the inside calculations. So if you get emotional, 12 signal right there. Right away. 12 graph communications, 12 line DNA line rotation interference. You're automatically in nebula. You understand nebula is the 12 cycle. Correlation lines at inner cycle location is your iris, is the 24 cycle. Everything inside is the process communication. So we have to understand the balance communication lines, the high interference, and triangulation line communications. So once you understand that, everything stays in center calculation, right? So that's all it is. It's the expansion of the mind and understanding how to go through all communication of the platforms. It's like walking up the stairs in all position, right? So this is you going through different levels in your game. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You go into the stairs and then you go through another door, right? Then you go through another door, right? Okay. So it's a process of really understanding you first and how you come into your platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Which is earth, air, water, and fire. That's going to be in position altogether in settings, right? So this processes you a lot more better to understand how to go through that correlation setting and travel and not get locked in time frame, right? Time frame, time loop, correlation setting, virus, line interference, location, Trojan, major correlation setting, high calculation setting, twilight zone, and line position. Okay. So if you understand what twilight zone is, it's tweaking wires. It's basically process communication across line standards, a lot of Quebec, a lot of India, correlation lines and calculations. Lacing lines of communication. All right, 3-line calculation setting travels, right? All right, so we got indicate line interference at 12 signal, lines of 24, 12 signal. Oh, we got a 48. Oh, we got a 72. And we got 144 in the center in this applications. All right, so each one has a central line. The 12-line signal is beta. No 12 signal is going to be alpha, right? So the correlation line interference is set position in the inner correlation of the clocking system is going to be invisible. The lines in higher interference, the matrix line connection setting is going to be in position attractions. So it's an outline signal, okay? An inline signal, outline signal, inner norm, outer norm, inner space, outer space. So the track application, as long as you understand, as soon as you get in the matrix and emotional line connections, you're automatically in a 12 clocking system, okay? Automatically. And you got to get back in, or you're going to set yourself in minus 12 of an overdraft. Okay, and then you got to bring yourself back down to 0. Then you get out of the process of this application that puts you in a time loop in the first place. It's no difference in your transition to application line condition setting. It's paying attention to what you're doing through your body activation screen lines. So if you're line position at 12 and 24 in position location 48, 72, and 144, you're good to go as long as you're in the clocking system staying inside location. Okay, if you get emotional, you're outside your eye lines. This is your eye. Okay. This is the retinal communication, right? So this is a 12 line. You're outside. This is a 12 line. You're outside. Everything's a 12. Clocking's a 12. Clocking's a 12. So that's 12. Inset position equals line 24. All right. 24. That's 24 trifactors your heart. 24. Okay. In position in calculation, line conditions, box frames, correlation on lines of communication. All right, so triangulates box lines, highest interference, and platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Okay, so everything starts with the eye central line conditions. As long as you stay within the center of the floaters, you're good to go in set location because it's a 24 cycle. Okay, 24 cycle inside. If not, you're outside, you're 12, right? So that's the position locations where your eye receptors change perception, how you see things, calculations. All right, so 12 line setting. Let's start with the positional lines of just creations of 4, right? It says communication 12 equals lines of 1, 1, 1, and position 12 lines of 1, 1, 1, because it has to have north line in position of all calculated lines. So 12 equals lines of 4, 12 equals lines of 4, 12 equals lines of 4, 12 equals lines of 4. Summer, spring, winter, fall. Your eye division lines in the 4 sequence location system. Okay, same with the correlation lines, your earth, your air, your water, your fire. It's not a coincidence, guys. Nothing's a coincidence. Nothing a coincidence that you know 4-line signal in correlation with calculation lines and a 3-line provision and a 7 bodies of water. But you have to stand the clocking system. Okay, in set location and calculation. Okay, so anything outlines at 12, you're in the matrix. 12 equals lines of matrix and timeline, right? So if you overdraft your system in -6, right, that's 6 lines of perimeter, 6 million frames, 6 billion cycles, and 6 trillion locations to get out of the equation. If you're in -5 line, that's 5 million measure, 5 correlations a seconds, 5 million line rotations, 5 billion cycles in correlation, right? So it just shows you the VR system, how the clocking system works with your avatars. Clock lines, centers, ground lines, center communications are everything process, correlation, and interaction. Direct modifications of pi, okay? So we have to understand the A line centers in position of B and calculation lines of C, dx of 1, okay? Correlates calculation lines. We got a skyline grid, calculate, modify in position of 1 pattern, 2 pattern line interference, and 2 equal lines of box line rotation, 4 waving correlation setting in travel communication of point graphs. All 3 set locations. Okay. Now, what's in the center correlation? Intelligence. Okay. Stand in the center, all through operational clocking, inside calculations. Inside. Your eye central has to be inside all the time. So if you understand that, then you understand this through platforms and waves and correlations and travels and mechanisms and high calculated settings, sonar, correlations, and track lines. But as soon as you get emotional, you're out in position of 12 lines out of your eye center, calculation lines of the windows. You have a box frame, all right? So let's get up 4 lines of highway, 12 settings, 12 settings, 12 settings, and set locations, right? So remember, you're in a 4-line waving panel and location north or south and east, right? So in position lines of east, lines of west is correlation line condition of 1, 1, 1, 1. That's supported communication 1 platform in position of 4 tractions, set location. Now direct lines, correlation high interference, high position location calculations. Dockings 1, 2, and 3, and 4 settings. Okay. Plasma generation line, screen line interference, and center core system is 4 track location. All right, so direct lines of center correlations of 4 track location setting and position operation. Balance. But it's in setting of the eye. It's inside of the eye location. It's the eye, guys. The actual highways is the eye central calculations of your system. Keeping yourself into the 24 cycles and not allowing yourself into a 12 line of overdraft location. Stay within the center correlation. Okay? That's it. We're done. All right. Everybody gets a little bit more understanding now through the iris and location settings to Horus. Hades, Corpus, Hermes is business location line condition settings. How it all communicates to a system and all communication line settings and all communicates to a system. Construction of its own. Windows, mirrors, and correlation. Platforms are 1, 2, and 3 traction. Direct lines north, east, west, south, southwest. Correlates high interference, matching sequence patterns, and line position location of stargates, line sprint interference, and star position programs. This is how star mechanisms came in position lines and correlates setting track lines and communicates to its position of program setting and travel. Ooh-ah. Right? But it's all in the central lines of the eye itself, guys. Everything's inside the eye. It stays inside the eye. It stays inside the eye. Intelligence. Look, intelligence. What's the unk? It's intelligence. Its intelligence of platforms is center line, correlation lines, communication lines, space lines, and mind line surface interaction of 4 settings. Okay? Grounds, powers, atmosphere, space. Okay? So everything is inside location. Right? So all you're doing is you're expanding the eye lines inside location, your all-alls, intra locations. Right? Process communication of floaters, right? So floaters are on standby until you look in the sun and the moon, right? That position your eye center calculations. Your eyes are changing the same as this. They're in the center calculation and triangulation. Okay, you have a binary and binary communication lines into all of your primers. 4 center communication. That's how it's set up, right? Film strips 1, 2 astral projections. All right. All right. So 3 split anomaly and a flux capacitor communication. Cross-line signals, up-line rotation, position of process, and setting. Okay, so it's all understanding how to travel through the line screen, high interference, and position of travel and point graph communicates to a system. Okay, so in that line, it's location grid, your face, and position locations. Mars is correlation setting to what? Your chin. Okay. So Mars central lines has its own flux. by its position lines of center correlation setting to its mouth and track location. Okay, that's your chin. Okay, reclamation bin. Core track lines of provision. There's no difference when you eat and drink. It goes down your connection setting, your throat line, your pattern correlation setting, line communication, wires on both side calculation, space, line, and time. Space line communication, high position travels. Point lines of graphs. You have 4 set of calculations. All right, so center line communication to the chin comes all communication line settings. Position as process. Neptune is the process communication that's on top of your head and line connection. Okay. So that process, your abundance in all ways and forms are your data highways in universal line screens, all directions and all set location. Okay. The central system line condition setting is understand the flux capacitor location of your towers in track location, in position, how everything connects and all formation to its setting. Guys, very simple to understand these things, how this is all set up. And the center core system, the primer, the transit, is the balance, is your flywheel of platforms to keep them balanced, to keep the platform balanced in space lines of anomaly, to keep that balance inside location of you attraction, which is the center core setting. Right? Center core setting, grounds, powers, atmospheres, right? 3 line set locations, right? So understand the face line, the structure line, the browse adapters, okay, the window frames, correlation line interference, right or left or right. And how to center line your set locations, how you see yourself through all levels of right and left and left and right. Okay, right over left, left over right, left over right, left over right, right over left. So the higher you go, more communication setting. Your ear lines, correlation to your sonars are now left. This is left, this is right, this is right, this is left, right? Because you're in the galaxies now. You're spinning fast in the mind line. So it has no core track provision line condition setting, but you have to learn how to basically control your space, especially with Mila, it was going too fast and she couldn't control that. So I had to slow her down. So the process of communication setting is to keep her in position of 24 and keeping her out of a 24 line setting. The 24 line cycle sets communication to its position of its program, but don't allow yourself to get into the 12 cycle because that puts you automatically in the matrix line. That puts all calculated modification lines of confusion in your flywheel track locations off communication with setter and line position, off calculation. Okay? It's got to be balanced line ground lines in all center correlation setting attraction. Okay? The position location is understanding how to see yourself in a 4 waving cycle. 4 waving cycle. Okay? 3 spectrum lines. That's 7 line signals, right? Process of north, east, west, and south. So process line, this is north. Ah, gotcha. See? This doesn't have to be because it's spinning very fast, right? Now this is south. This is west. This is south. You understand? So in that provision, you're going too fast, but where are you going in travel? Are you in position lines of 12? Because you can't get rid of that line setting because that's the matrix. What is the 12 clocking system? On a 24 line setting and calculation, 24 has to be in the center core and the 12 communications. Data process line calculation setting in north, east, west, and south location. Flux capacitor split lines anomaly. Sets communication lines, magnetic highway information, which is your data process calculation system. Travel correlates to calculation lines, settings, your grounds, your spines, location, constellations, application. Okay. 2 panels, runway, track location. So once you understand that, then you understand the platforms of 0 in position of grounds, in position of center, in position of atmosphere, and space location. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hoo-ah. Done by equation, right? So once you understand that, then you understand the universal line connections of higher levels of platforms, higher communication setting to travel, right? Because you're all doing it from what? Inside the eye of center calculation. Nothing is outside. Okay, everything is inside line, right? Anything outline communication, you're in 12 o'clock issues. That puts you automatically into what? Sets communications to all levels, overdraft. Minus, not plus. So back to 0 puts everything back to plus and set lines equals lines of 4. Track to position lines back in 3 line calculation setting. Triangulation of 3 lines equals lines of 4, sets lines of 7. Now you're going to go 3 lines. The only different position locations with all calculated lines of the female cycles, They got a core track lines height at 4 lines of 3 because they can't travel through 3 lines of 4. It's got to be at 4 lines of 3. Everybody has a provision line cycle, so the women have to go through that line position locations. That's why they have more intuitive than men. It's the intuitive line communication sets, line communication setting, how they're correlating line communication to its position of programs in line kind of high center interference of 6 and 9 attraction. Okay? So the process with the males is the intuitive line screen location is how they go through 4 lines of 3 and travel location of 7. 3 communication lines and position of 4 lines of 7. Okay? The only line communications they have add the equation that add line center high interference 4 equals lines of 3, sets communication lines of 7, add position lines of 12, and center line communication outlines calculation screen lines, and set positions operation. Okay? And the 24 sets lines of communication inside. 24 is in the inside. Okay, and then you work your way into 48, 72, and 144 as your platforms. And once you get into the center core system, you go higher lines and higher communication out the equation. But you're still in the I central system. You never leave the I central. All right, because it confuses the mind through adaptation of cerebros, of platforms, right? So you stay with that in that position, you come to the energetic grids, power centers, power correlation, track location settings, travel, right? XC1000 comes in platforms 1, platforms 2, docking lines at 3 set locations. Travel calculation lines of point lines of graphs go through electrical lines, electrical infusion, electrical communication, box lines, electrical line communication setting of sonar communication lines, high position location radiation. Ground lines, communication ground lines, sets communication on platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 come together and travel. They come together. What does it create? What do platforms create when they come together? Center core system, lines of space and time, a platform, a wormhole, travel, Stargate, position line calculation. Ooh-ah, right? So once you understand the 24, 48, 72, and 144, you're at 144. But the team is understanding the process, more lines of communication, putting all those platforms together is a one central system of 144. So they don't have to worry about the 24 in platforms with the species. They have to go through, it's like going through timelines, time jumps, communication all levels, leapfrogging, right? From one leap to the next. Get the other side, right? So that's a process when you get one platform of 24, 48, 72, and 148. When you put it together, you create a portal. You create a Stargate. And that's the whole process. That is the whole process for the species, understand that. But they have to go through the platforms of 24 clocking, 48 frames, 72 computer frames, and 144 grid. That process them in position to the VR system. That gets them a better understanding of what they're doing through tractions, all through calculations. Okay? So once you understand that, because the avatar has to understand its own portals in the Stargates. Von Q is in control of the portals and Stargates through navigations, but you guys are in control of settings, how to understand the platforms of 24, position lines of 48, 72, and 144. You're putting that all together in travel. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you're doing. And then position you get ready. This is you, travel, through the set location. Instead of going deep, 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 right? So you start there, and the more lines of correlation lines of track lines, you get in higher communication, higher position location of travels in your dimension lines of space. You create communication lines of platforms. Now, when you start those platforms, they come together. It's like a slinky, but you put them all together, right? And they form into a wormhole, okay? And then you can change the directions. That's where you have to, we'll get into that lines how you bend space. Okay, you bend space, that's bending space, right? And then you go here in platforms, creating communication 24, 48, 72, 144. So that's 24 clocking, 48 frames, 72 computer frames, and 144 grid. That's the correlation lines of attractions that you guys all come into. Creating that through position gets you a better understand how to use that in your mechanism when you guys are in recharge in calculations, right? So as long as you stay in the 24, you're good to go. But if you're off lines at 12, you're locked in the matrix of time zone. You're in the twilight zone of calculation setting to travel, right? So you can't get in the crystal grid until you get back down to 0 in each frame communication. Get out of the negative back to 0 correlations set calculations. Get in 12 lines back into 24. You're good to go through 24, 48, 72, and 144. Okay? And that's all it is, interaction. Hoo-ah. Okay. So it's a lot more fun why you have to go through platforms. Because understanding and position, okay, it's no difference for general to walk outside and see the platforms from longitude and latitude, the times square, and calculation of square roots or anything through pi. But it's about understanding what you're seeing when you go outside, because the outside is inside. So I don't need to go through platforms because I go through dimensions. I go through portals. I go through stargates. I go through vortex, a time leap, a time jump, a timestamp. There's so many things that you can do on a 24 line and 6 location. Okay? It's not a coincidence that it's one line center, 0458 line condition setting. Everything that we do through line communication is travel. As long as we're traveling, we're seeing it through its image, we're good to go. If we don't see it through travel, we're not. That's all it is. That's a process you have to understand the square root, a pi. Okay, square root of anything is the eyes, the windows of the soul. That's what square root means. It's the eyes, the windows of the soul. Okay? So once you understand the root, then you understand your data. Then you understand your process, how it works, all positioned here, right? The center core system and the setting. Okay, this is your highway and your application. That's your highway. Okay, then you have dockings, point graphs, communication, X2000s are on standby. Okay, and you go through your platforms. You start with that. When you get out of the platforms, you're automatically in portals and stargates, and you're traveling right through it right away. So you don't have to worry about the platforms. It's creating the platforms of clockings first, but to stay out of the 12 clocking system. The 12 clocking system is out, and the 24 system is in. But you need the 12 clocking system because it's the outer rings, a set location in your eye. Hoo-ah, right? It's the eye central system of your eye. So it's really interesting when you actually look at your eyes. You have the central setting, calculation, line condition setting, right? So see this here? See that there? That's the top. See this top right here? That's a 12 signal. That's a 12. 12, 12, 12, 12. Okay? The process communication lines, all lines high interference. The lid itself, okay? Really fascinating stuff, right? The actual lid itself in traffication is the UFO setting. It's shaped like a UFO because that's what it is, right? If you look at it in process, then you're understanding light set location, how it comes into all levels. Modification setting modules, guys, in calculation. And all center lines is communication, line center high interference. Why you have an eyelid? What is an eyelid? In position. What is an eyelid? In set location. Platforms, guys, to travel through. Platforms to travel through. Okay? This is the eye central system of your eye. Hoo-ah. Now you understand what the eyelid is, right? Crop circle, set location, line condition, sonar, track locations, X3000, out through equation. Okay? So now you understand what the eyelid is. It's the top line link. It's correlations to your networks. Data process, magnet highway information setting, which is your head. Crop line center high interference, high position travel lines, X3000, your eyelid goes higher line position, travel. Out through equation, goes into the sun. Right? Comes out of the sun, goes into the moon. Okay? All through the central lines at inside location of your eye. Everything's done through the eye. So anything left to chance, if your outline cycles and line condition is 12, you're locked in the platforms of the matrix. Okay? You're on a time loop. Setting correlation, track interference, and position programs, and character modifications, and setting and travel. Loop. Now you understand the process, what your position lines and what your eyes are now. Top line, bottom line. Okay? It's not a coincidence this way. It's not a coincidence this way. It's not a coincidence. That's not equal. That's your eye itself. So how's that separated? There's no separation of what's above and below. There's no above, there's no below. It's the eye central system in your crop circle. The eye itself is its platforms to travel through. Okay? Everything is done from eye line setting. Inside locations of your platforms of communication. Hoo-ah. Okay? Everybody understand a little bit more now? The eye center calculation. How powerful it is to really recognize your face recognition times, all through your electrical settings. How you come into your own calculation modifications and how you see yourself through identity and what your eyebrows do, brows adapters. Okay? Flux capacitor. Okay. So that's just for you to understand. And more you understand yourself inside, the more you understand everything from outside. Because the inside is the outside, the outside is the inside. There's just no yin and yang, yin and yang. It's just you. There's not even a process of yin and yang until you bring up the yin and yang, because that's an emotional setting. That puts you automatically in a 12 clocking system. That puts you in an overdraft calculations. Then you got to go back to 0, because that puts you in a process communication back in the time loop, which is Groundhog Day. Okay, that's the matrix. Matrix is a repeating cycle of Groundhog Day. Okay, now you understand. Okay, how it works with a 12 clocking system. This is your 12 clocking here. Okay, everything is inside location. Anything outside line, anything above the eyebrows, okay, is Quebec interference. So we all have to understand how this all works and process of communication. It's all levels in how you get in position lines to understand the inner space of the outer space, creating the inner space of you and creating the outer space of you, of space and time. This is the metric meter correlation lines of clocking. 12 clocking system, 12 clocking system, 24 clocking system, 144 clocking system. You understand? So that's how it works in, right? 12, 24, 48, 72, 144. Hooah. That's all it is, guys. Platforms, out through equation, but it's inside the eye line. So nothing goes above the eyelid, because that's Quebec, that's interference. That's Indian. You understand? That's Yankee. All right. I think we're understanding now. That process, the next time you look at yourself in the mirror, you will no longer see yourself as a reflection. Right? 111 confirmation 18. Chart location of 23/7. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 31 over lines of 23/7. 33, 34, 35. So when I'm doing counting measures, time sequence lines of pi, correlation lines of square roots, triangulation line communication setting 111 position of 4-3 line communication 23/7. What did I just say? I retract the division of the binaries. The clock system is going back in time now. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, and that's how you guys feel. So it's all track lines of high interference, how you go through mind manipulation, mind observations, and correlation lines of intent. Understand how to use that, process you in a better communications, how to control your thoughts, and your thoughts control your actions, and your actions control your what? What do your actions control? What do your actions control? Your emotions, right? So what happens when you get an emotion? You're in a 12 clocking system, right? You're automatically in the matrix. Is that a coincidence that we're at 25/7? No. Okay, everything is a time loop. But understanding the time loop is understanding the yin and the yang of you, a process to understand that, whoa, okay, I'm seeing a glitch. Now I understand what's going on. I have position locations of minus lines of 4. I got to go back to 0. Then I got to go back to 12. Then I got to line communications into positive and negative, into position lines of back to 12 into 24. That puts me back in position location out of the matrix, back in setting, back in operation, back in the I division. All through correlation, all through transformation, all through modification, all through modules, all through travels, all through mechanisms, all through navigation. That's a process we all have to come into, right? So start using your eye central line condition setting on all position locations. 12, 24, 48, 72, 144. Okay, that's it. That's all it is. Okay, that's all it is. All right, see you guys in 5. Doo-doo.